Hey everybody, Madison here with Health by Ratio, and welcome to video number 1 in our 3-part series on how to get back to running after an injury in just 15 minutes a day. Now, so you know who my team and I are. We consist of licensed physical therapists, corrective exercise specialists, functional health coaches, and running coaches that work together online to create truly holistic programs that are tailored to each client so that we can help them get out of chronic, recurring, random tweaks, injuries, pains, whatever that they're dealing with, get them back to the health that they need to live the fit and active lives that they love. So we're very passionate about bridging that gap from rehabilitation to actual functional fitness, whether that is an athlete or a weekend warrior looking to get back to training for an event or get back to their sport, or whether it's somebody who's just looking at the upcoming decades of their life and they want the longevity for them to be able to move in the ways that they love to stay fit, that keep them sane, that produce their endorphins while being able to keep up with the kids and grandkids as they do so. That's what we're passionate about. So we want to give you guys the tools and resources to maintain this abundant life. Now, without further ado, let's jump into this first video, which is all going to be about assessing the body from head to toe in terms of where our body might have some low-hanging fruits that are impacting our movement patterns. And then based off of this first video and seeing where we have some deviations, compensations, imbalances, whatever it might be, we can create a game plan on what to be mobilizing versus what to be exercising to move us back toward full ranges of stable motion. Now, why this is such an important topic and why this is such an important first step for us that have been dealing with an injury or injuries that have been impacting our running in particular is because so many of us, like myself, went through your kind of typical rehabilitation process. I myself had 8 straight years of chronic and recurring injuries to all over my body. I was a hodgepodge. I had issues with plantar fasciitis, tons of massive ankle tears, serious knee injuries, hamstring problems, chronic lower back pain, and throw out my lower back a number of times, neck, shoulders, you name it. I went through it. And we also have clients like Nell who dealt with one specific injury for a full year that kept her out of running. She's an avid runner who loves to run 4 to 7 miles every week, several times a week. And she was dealing with peroneal tendonitis that turned into tendinosis. And it kept her from not just being able to run, but she couldn't stand in the kitchen for 30 straight minutes without being in brutal pain in and around that lateral aspect of her ankle, let alone being able to go for a walk or a run. So for if you can relate to either myself that had a barrage or Nell who had a single injury, then you probably can relate to the next thing is we went to our physical therapy and we did all of the specific treatments and exercises needed for whatever that injury was. Maybe we also got extra treatments, like we did some stim work, maybe we did some dry needling, maybe we got chiropractic adjustments, maybe we went to an acupuncturist, maybe massage therapy, whatever. We did all of the kind of essential rehabilitation techniques for that specific injury, which initially is absolutely needed. That's kind of a no-brainer, right? If we just came off of a tear or a break or something like that, we got to get that tissue, that joint, that bone to a minimal level of health. So that has to be prioritized. But the challenge is that most rehabilitation processes in this day and age stop there. It just focuses on the injury and rehabbing that injury, and then we're off to our own devices. But the challenge is for most of us, since that injury, especially if it's been months or years that we've been dealing with it, some of our clients for decades that they've been dealing with these things, our body has developed compensations in this amount of time. So we aren't moving the same way as we were before. We're not as balanced. We're not as efficient. We have also maybe scar tissue or mobility restrictions that are preventing us from being able to move correctly. Maybe some weakness in our core, our glutes, or wherever that isn't stabilizing us the right way. And so we now have these deviations that are keeping us from moving the way that our body wants. And so it's keeping our injuries alive or tweaking other random areas of our body. And even, I would say, probably more prevalent and something that coincides for most of us is that leading up to the injury, often we had compensations and imbalances that were starting to develop beforehand, whether that came from how we were sitting throughout our day and how we were driving, how we learned to walk, how just movement pattern, overuse to certain maybe sports that we played, whatever. There were things that impacted us how we moved beforehand that often were linked to the injury in the first place. And then we had that injury and we've been compensating since. So we have a variety of reasons that affect us from head to toe, not just the specific injury. That just happens to be the weak link in the chain that's talking to us. But the root causes can be stemming from head to toe. If I'm dealing with a foot injury, that doesn't have to maybe just do with the foot and the ankle. That could have to do with stuff that's happening up at the hip or the core or even the shoulders and the neck. Vice versa, if I'm dealing with stuff at my lower back, that could be what's going on at my foot. It could be what's going on with my other shoulder. And the way the body is compensating is causing those weak links in the chain to be impacted. Like Tom Myers likes to say, is that the body is less like 600 unique muscles and more like one muscle with 600 different attachments, meaning we are one gigantic web connected from head to toe that everything is affecting everything else. So what we can do at this point is ourselves, we can assess our body to get the information needed to say, all right, where do we have deviations? Where do we have imbalances? And how do we now create a game plan to correct them? So that's what we're going to transition to right now. And this is what has enabled me to get back to being active every day, playing the sports that I love, going for the runs that I want, and being able to stay healthy day in and day out. It was what was able to get Nell out of 12 straight months of dealing with perineal tendinosis to being able within just a month to feel healthy and pain-free enough to be able to walk and stand as long as she wanted. And then within a couple of months, be able to get back to running and do it again pain-free. And I would say most importantly, not just the health of her body, and I can relate to this personally as well, but as we corrected what was going on, impacting her ankle from head to toe, it also made her way more efficient and more powerful runner. And so she was able to, where before her injury, she was running at like a 9.5 minute pace on average. She has a lot of hills in her area. That she cut that down to 8 to 8.5 minutes just a month after she got started with running again. So like it only took her a couple of months of treating this whole body to not just being able to run her 4 to 7 miles 3 times a week and feel great doing so, but she became that much better of a runner. She killed 2 birds with 1 stone. So I'm so excited to jump into this, guys. Let's transition to our assessments now. All right, so now transitioning into the assessments that we're going to use to determine where our low-hanging fruits are from head to toe that are potentially impacting how our body's moving, where we're compensating from, where we have imbalances from, all that good stuff. Now, whenever my team and I are working with somebody on our video assessments, there are a variety of different things that we want to take a look at. We want to take a look at how they're sitting down and standing up, how they're kneeling down, how they're bending over to pick things up, how they're reaching, twisting, walking, running if they're ready for it, and if that's what they're doing. But we want to assess all of the ways that their body is naturally moving from head to toe, because each assessment gives us just a little bit more, a few more pieces to the puzzle on what needs to be addressed to move back toward full range of stable motion. Now, if you don't have a background in biomechanics or kinesiology or corrective exercise, and you're not familiar with how to assess the body, there can be a lot of stuff that gets in the weeds and gets nitty gritty with a lot of these assessments. But one of them is something that can give us a ton of information that many of us can just look at ourselves in the mirror or record ourselves on a phone, and we can assess and analyze a variety of different things that will allow us to find the like baseline key points of what we need to work on, and that's the squat. It tells us so many things about what's happening at the ankles, the hips, and thoracic spine that if we address, we will find that the body starts moving in the right direction really, really quickly here. So if you guys haven't already, I want you to download your PDF, the checklist, the free checklist guide on what we're going to be assessing here, so that you can have that next to you and notate what you need to work on from the right to left-hand side and head to toe. And also, before we jump into this, guys, I should say my team and I are curious what it is you're trying to achieve. What are your goals? Obviously, we'd love to know what you're trying to rehabilitate, but more importantly, what your actual goals are. What do you want to achieve? Write that below in the comments below this video so we can connect with you and find out what you're looking to achieve. Now, have that PDF handy for our checklist here, and then we're going to get into this squat assessment. And one real quick preface is that I'm going to show you guys how, in theory, we should look when we squat. Now, obviously, how I squat is going to be different than how you squat. We're going to look a little bit different. We have different bodies, but there are certain guidelines that we should be able to achieve or should be able to perform in a squat. And so if you are doing this, and you see that you're not able to do one of these, position your body a certain way while you're squatting, don't be upset. Don't get discouraged. Don't get defensive and frustrated. Oh, my foot's always done that. So like that's always been the thing. I've never been able to squat with my foot straight. It's always turned out that way. That whatever it might be. That I can't tell you how many assessments I have done over the last 14 years. We work with dozens of people every month. I've done thousands upon thousands of these assessments, and I hear it all the time. I've always just moved this way. Well, that doesn't mean you can't improve. I've worked with so many clients that were stiff as a board from when they were kids. They weren't able to sit cross-legged in school as kids, let alone sit cross-legged as an adult. And that's okay. Their goal wasn't to sit cross-legged. They just wanted to move healthy, but the way that their hips are tight was preventing them. So we got them on a very unique and specific mobility program from head to toe that addressed their restrictions. And then we're doing some reassessments a couple of months later, and all of a sudden I see them sitting on the ground in cross-legged position. And they're just hanging out there. I'm like, wait, what the heck? When did that happen? They're like, oh yeah, this is now a thing. I can sit cross-legged. I've never been able to do this before. I'm 50, and all of a sudden I can sit cross-legged. So like, I see it all the time. Every single client that we work with can learn how to squat with their feet straight, relatively speaking. Might have a little bit of wiggle room, but that like their feet are relatively straight. That is a thing, and these are people that have squatted like this their entire lives. So don't be discouraged. Actually get excited, because this is where you're suddenly seeing, this is where potentially some of my compensations are coming from. So if I improve these things, if I make marginal improvements to them, I'm going to feel that much better. I'm going to move that much better. Now, are all of us going to be able to sit in full lotus and be meditating like a Hindu monk? Maybe not. But are we going to be able to do a full squat all the way down to the ground and come back up? Maybe not. That might not be in the cards for us. Maybe we had a procedure, or maybe we had some stuff that's going to like physically prevent us from doing it. That's potentially true. But that doesn't mean we can't move in that direction and improve 5-10 degrees here and there. That makes all the difference in the world in the health of our body. So let's get going into how to assess this squat pattern. I want you guys to get into a position where you're either recording yourself and you can see yourself in head to toe in the frame of your camera, your phone or selfie or your tablet, whatever you're using, or stand in front of a mirror so you can see yourself from head to toe. And the first thing we're going to do is get shoulder width apart, toes pointed forward, and actually check your feet. Are they pointed straight forward? This does not count. Don't just do it off of feel. A lot of times people are like, they are straight ahead. We'll look down. Oh, no, they're not. Okay, yeah, I should straighten those out. Okay, so get your feet straight ahead. Now we're going to have just the hands at the chest, and we're going to try to squat down to chair level if we can. If you can't squat to chair level, that's okay. Do whatever you got. But we're going to try to squat to chair level and see, can we keep our knees and our feet straight in alignment as we go up and down here. Now, is it bad to squat with the feet out? No. Is it bad to squat with the feet in? Actually, we should be able to do that. We can squat narrower, we can squat wider, all that kind of stuff. But for this assessment, we want to see, can we squat hip width apart, toes pointed forward? And so as we go down, the knees should be in alignment with mid to outside of the foot. The knees should not be buckling in towards or inside of the big toe. And the feet should be able to stay straight. As you do, say about 4 to 5 nice controlled reps. See if one or both feet start to slip out a little bit to the side, or see if one or both knees start buckling in a little bit at the inside of those big toes. If you see either of those things, check them off on your PDF. If it's just one side, notate which side it is that you saw that on. The next thing that we're going to look at is going to be the hips from this front profile. Are we able to stay centered as we squat down? And if you have a tough time getting a visual of this, guys, you might want to put like a broomstick along the ground, or straddle a line so that you have something splitting you down the middle, and see at the bottom, especially at the bottom of the squat, you might notice this right away, actually, like you could see it right away. But at the bottom of the squat, Are you still centered, or are you shifting to one side? Or are you shifting a little bit to the other side? Are you leaning to one side? Often it's going to be subtle. You might only be doing it by a half inch to an inch, or it could be huge. I've seen tons of clients that squat all the way off to here, kind of thing. Whatever it is, check that off on your PDF if you're seeing yourself shift to one side or the other. And then we're going to transition to the side profile now to get a visual of the remaining things that we're looking at. So this next one is something that you're going to check off both for the ankles and the hips, which is when we squat and we get down to chair level, if we can get down to chair level, the goal is for our lower leg below the knees and the torso should finish parallel at the same angle. So as I get down to chair level here and I'm squatting here, we should see my lower leg and my torso should be parallel at the same angle. What I don't want to see is my butt way back on my heels where my shins are more vertical and my torso is at a much steeper angle in comparison. So if I'm seeing that I keep sticking my butt way back on my heels, I am going to check off both ankles and hips. Now, I'm already hearing some of you say, well, I was always told that I got to squat with my knees behind my toes. One, that's actually kind of a fallacy. There's a lot of debate in the biomechanics world now that's been a cue that was not necessarily accurate, but without getting into the weeds on all that in terms of like how that's actually not that bad for the knees and blah, 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 just notate what I just did. I didn't get my knees beyond my toes. I got my knees even with my toes. So I'm still technically in that rule of thumb. My knees are even with my toes, and I'm trying to stay parallel between my lower legs and torso. If I can't do that, if I have to keep going into this position, I feel this pinch coming into my hip right there, and whatever it is, we're going to check that both the ankles and the hips, that we got some work there that we can do. If I can't squat all the way to chair level, that's another indication. We're checking off both ankles and hips there. Okay, now, last couple of things that we're looking at. In terms of the lower back, we want to see, are we keeping a neutral spine as we go down, or are we overarching the lower back as we go down? Or on the opposite end of the spectrum, are we coming down neutral, 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 and then all of a sudden rounding the lower back at the bottom and then standing up? Either of those things happening, check them off. If you feel that tension in the lower back, check those boxes. And then the last progression we're going to do, just for a few reps, is we're going to take our arms and we're going to try to raise them all the way straight overhead. So you guys can see me in the view of the camera, all the way straight overhead. And we're keeping palms facing in, like touchdown field goal post kind of symbol is what we're trying to do. And what we're seeing is, can I cover my ears from the side profile? Someone standing from the side of me, they wouldn't be able to see my ears here without any compensations happening at my torso. So I want to be able to stay neutral and raise my arms overhead. If I do that and I start to see my back arch and my ribs flare up, okay, that's a check mark on the thoracic spine. Or if I can't get the arms vertical, if I'm raising them up and they get stuck out here and I can still see my ear the whole time, okay, we're going to check off that thoracic spine as an area that we need to give some love to. And then the last kind of box to check is, can I maintain that arm position while I squat? So if I was able to get my arms vertical and be neutral, now can I squat and keep the arms vertical and neutral the whole time, or are they falling forward? Or am I really overarching and straining my back to try to keep those arms vertical? Okay, check the thoracic spine. So again, guys, if you saw any of these things, if you are notating, okay, I got this issue on that left ankle and that issue on the right, I'm doing that with the right side of the hip, and I'm doing this with my back, and I'm doing this with my thoracic spine. Okay, now we're starting to piece together what we can do, what's going to come up in video number 2, which is going to be, how do we mobilize this? How do we actually restore ranges of motion back to the body? Hint, it's not just stretch. So we're going to go through some unique techniques on how to actually get your ranges of motion where they need to be. And then video 3, we're going to teach this body how to use these ranges of motion correctly. So again, comment below on what your goals are and what you are looking to achieve, not just in health, but also in fitness. We can't wait to hear. And outside of that, if you enjoyed the video, like it, share it, subscribe to us, and so that you can see other content that we put out on a regular basis. But looking forward to videos 2 and 3 coming up. Talk to you soon.